in this room take that test and stop supplementing for the sake of supplementing and start supplementing for the deficiency in your body that is exactly what you need to get to the next level of optimal health. But the balance of what I'm going to talk about you can do anywhere on the planet, and I'll help you find places that will help you support this. But essentially, we start with genetic testing. Because there are 5 actionable genes in the human body, as I mentioned, that convert all of the raw material in your body into the usable form. There is one gene mutation, for example, it's called MTHFR. Have any of you ever heard of that gene mutation? Wow, 1, 2, 3. Wow, 4 of you have heard of MTHFR. It's nicknamed the motherfucker gene. So the MTHFR gene mutation is the most common gene mutation in the world. It is the leading cause of postpartum depression in pregnant females. Because the MTHFR gene mutation, which half of this room has, means that you do not have the ability to take folic acid and turn it into the usable form that your body can use called methylfolate. And that might not sound like a big deal. Well, folic acid is the most prevalent nutrient in the human diet. In 1992, the US federal government decided that we would spray our entire grain supply with folic acid. We would spray all white pasta, all white rice, all white flour, all grains are sprayed with folic acid. Except they don't tell you that it's sprayed with a chemical called folic acid, which by the way doesn't occur anywhere naturally on the surface of the earth. Folic acid is a completely man-made chemical. You cannot find folic acid anywhere in nature. So we spray our entire grain supply and all white flour, white rice, and white pasta with this chemical called folic acid, right? But 44% of the population can't actually use folic acid. So folic acid, instead of saying sprayed with folic acid, we use the terms fortified or enriched. So if you spin a box of crackers around and it says fortified whole wheat or enriched whole grain, or enriched bleached white flour, that means it's sprayed with the chemical folic acid. And half of this room cannot process that nutrient. 44% of the population has the gene mutation MTHFR. 44% of the population is on an antidepressant. If you actually overlaid in 1992 the chart of when we started to spray our grain supply with folic acid and the incidence of ADD, ADHD, OCD, Alzheimer's, and autism, you would see that these charts are superimposable. You see, there's a myth, a lie that we're told about these diseases, Alzheimer's and dementia being one of them. How many of you people have heard of Alzheimer's and dementia, that people lose their memory when they have those diseases? That's not true. They lose access to their memory. Their memory never leaves. They lose access to their memory, and the access can be restored. So we spray this grain supply with folic acid. When women become pregnant, what's the first thing their doctor tells them to do? Take folic acid, right? They'll tell a pregnant woman to take folic acid, but 44% of the female population has a gene mutation where they actually can't process folic acid. So what happens if you put 1,400% of the daily allowance of folic acid into a female that's pregnant that can't process folic acid? She instantly gets postpartum depression. And then the pregnancy ends and she stops taking the prenatal vitamin, so the symptoms go away. So she blames it on the pregnancy and not on the vitamin. And this happens over and over and over and over again, because the United States is the only civilized nation in the world that uses something called single dose toxicity to determine whether or not something is safe for you. Do you know what we make the #1 form of B12 in the world out of? Does anyone know? There's 4 forms of B12. You know that B12 is a necessary metal in your body, right? You cannot survive without B12, right? It's responsible for all the nerve transmission. By the way, it's a metal. Like zinc and magnesium, B12 is a metal. So we put B12, and we can take it from nature, but it's expensive. So we produce it in a lab, and it's called cyanocobalamin. My friend back there on the, is there any way that you could go to Google?
Yeah.
You could? I know I didn't prep you for this. Because whenever I say what I'm about to say, it sounds so outlandish, I'm actually just going to take you to the government's website before I get called a conspiracy theorist. No, which happened to me during the pandemic. I told people to take vitamin D3, and they're like, "You're a charlatan, you're a sycophant." I had to look up sycophant. I told people to take a vitamin C, vitamin D3, zinc, and magnesium, and not sit on their couch until they couldn't breathe anymore, and I got called a Trump sycophant. I was like, how did you know who my political affiliation and what is a sycophant? I had to Google it. So, So I want you to go right here. So the number one form of B12 in the world, probably 70% of you are taking 4 times the daily allowance of this vitamin right now because it's in your protein powders, it's in your multivitamins, it's in your energy drinks. It's called cyano, nope, back that up. C-Y-A-N-O, C-O, cobalamin, yep, and then go to the next word, cyanocobalamin, just go space. No, cyanocobalamin, could you leave? Yeah, somehow, yeah, space. Put the word, add the word pubchem. P-U space pubchem, P-U-B-C-H-E-M. So this is the most popular, the number one form of B12 in the world. You see, because modern medicine and industry has to find ways to produce things cheaply and in mass quantity. Right? This vitamin, by the way, there you go. This vitamin is in all Flintstone vitamins. It's in the number one selling vitamin in the world, in Centrum vitamins. Like I said, more than 70% of this room is taking 4 times the daily allowance of this vitamin right now. I'm going to make you stop. So can you scroll so I can see the top of this page? There you go. I'm at the National Library of Medicine at the National Institute of Health. Okay, so I am on the government website. If you wanted to make a vitamin, if you want to manufacture a protein powder or make your own supplement, you would go to this website, right? And you would find all of the manufacturers that are licensed to make that compound. Right, so if I wanted to put this B12 in a supplement and sell it to the public, this is where I would find out who can manufacture it. So can you scroll down to section 5.3? So now we're just going to find out what it's made out of. Right? So section 5.3, there we go. It tells me everything that, just up just a little bit, right there. So it tells me everything that this vitamin is made out of. The cobalt metal, which all vitamin B12 is made out of. And it's also made out of something called hydrogen cyanide. Oh, I wonder what that is. Let's click on hydrogen cyanide. Right there. Wow. Hydrogen cyanide is a flammable, acute toxic environmental hazard. Can we scroll up just a little bit? Just curious what else these manufacturers use hydrogen cyanide in. Can you guys see that? Whoa, sorry. Can someone in the front row just read that sentence out loud right there? So hydrogen cyanide is a highly toxic conjugate acid of cyanide that is used as a chemical weapon agent. That is a fact. We take that same form of B12 and we ship it to chemical weapons facilities and we ship it to vitamin manufacturers to be compounded into Flintstone vitamins and fed to our kids. We take that same chemical weapon that's an acute toxic flammable environmental hazard and we ship it to compound pharmacies that put it in supplements and protein powders and energy drinks that you drink. Right? You ever heard of a Celsius energy drink? Celsius energy drink has 4 times the amount of daily cyanide that a human being is meant to ingest. 4 times, that's just one sample. So drink Monster or Bang. Drink Bang, not Monster or Celsius, right? Bang has methylcobalamin, this has cyanocobalamin. So, and we wonder what, we're putting these toxic chemicals. This is, where we get the hydrogen cyanide? Don't make me take you to that website because you'll just get up and leave. Do you know where we would get hydrogen cyanide? Because these facilities that actually compound this B12, they don't even pay for the hydrogen cyanide. Do you know where they get it? Human sewage treatment plants. It is the waste from a human sewage treatment plant. It's called sludge. It's foamy yellow sludge. They scrape it off the top, they dry it, turn it into a powder, ship it to a facility, synthesize it with a metal, and put it in your vitamins. They take metal, hydrogen cyanide, and put it in our supplements. So that's exactly, so when you get home tonight, I want you to take all of your supplements and protein powders, spin them around, look for that word cyanocobalamin, and if it has it, throw it in the trash, right? And do that for your kids too. This genetic testing, so Grant allows me to actually show his genetic test. So this is actually Grant Cardone's genetic test. And I'm going to show you why Grant Cardone will never leave me and why he bought our company. In fact, if you've been following Grant Cardone long enough, if you go back on his Instagram about 4 years ago, when I started to work with Grant, you'll see that he looked 15 years older than he does today. Right? He does not look, act, or perform like a 64-year-old man. He's 64 years old. Right? He has the energy of 10 men. He sleeps very, very deeply, and he is sharp and on his game, whether you like him or not. that's the position that he's in, and he does not look like a 64-year-old man. So this is his genetic test. But what this test tells you, you see these colored rectangles right here? all of those colored rectangles should be green. This is, by the way, one of the worst I've ever seen. One of the worst I've ever seen. So when they are green, that means that the gene works all the time. If they were yellow, which his are not, it would mean that that gene works 40% of the time. If it's red, it doesn't work at all. So if this gene right here is red, you see that's the MTHFR gene mutation. So if that gene in your body right now is red, you cannot methylate folic acid. So what does that mean? That means that you are highly prone to anxiety. You're also very prone to being anxious, right? Anxiousness is a very present value emotion where you're like, I gotta get on to the next thing. It'll drive your spouse crazy. It can also lead about 80 to 85% of the patients that have, people that have that MTHFR gene mutation experience anxiety on a regular basis.